Well, I thought it was time for another a personal share regarding this awakening journey, but mostly this one is going to cover the Kundalini process that I've been going through. And yeah, this may be my last personal share video because I have a feeling that it's going to be a long time that I'm going to be in what is called the renovation and restoration process. That they talk about in the Kundalini Vidya books that I talked about in my other video, in my random recommendations. Anyway, so where am I at? It's a really good question. So this, obviously, if you're not in Kundalini process or on the awakening journey, this is not going to be relevant to you, but it might be interesting. So if you think that you are in Kundalini process, then what I'm going to describe to you, it appears, I've been told that my Kundalini process has reached what is called Makara Point, and even perhaps beyond that to other points called Bindu and Parabindu. No confirmation on the Parabindu, but definitely Bindu. And what does that mean? It means, let's talk about Makara Point. Kundalini has, Makara is up here. It is the higher version of the lower brow chakra center. And apparently, well, I'll show you a picture from the book. There is the energy column of the Sushumna rises up, and this is the lower brow chakra, and there's a diamond hard cap here. And so everything from here below, Kundalini is still moving around. Not unstable, but she's not stable and standing up, right? This is still called lower process. But once she has pierced through that diamond hard cap, she enters up into here, which I don't know what's up here, but lots of different other processes and nadis and routes. But once she's up here, that's called the Makara Point. And let me show you a picture of that. Let's see. You can see that. Makara Point. Yeah. Okay, I hope that was sufficient. Let me see if there's anything I want to tell you. Yeah, so what happens when Kundalini reaches Makara? She is now standing straight up and stable, and you are in upper process. And this doesn't mean she's complete. She still has a whole lot of stuff to do, but everything's happening from here up into the top of the head. And I didn't even know that I had reached Makara until months later. I was made an appointment with my teacher. It had been a long time, and I was going through all this stuff, and she's like, I think you've reached Macra. It's pretty certain. Anyway, so once you reach Macra, I can tell you from my experience, not even knowing that I had reached Macra, everything changes. And what happened to me was, first of all, some signs that Kundalini has reached Macra. You can have some very phenomenal things, but not always necessary to have the big phenomenal things. I had a lot of stuff, which was a good indicator, but definitely you might experience, in my other shares, I talked about seeing this brilliant diamond white light like several times, and just, anyway, that apparently was the piercing of the diamond hard cap. So it reached Makara. But also people can have visions or interactions with saints, gurus, holy places, holy people, all that sort of stuff. And while I didn't have holy people, I did, I think I shared it in my last personal share, had this experience of being inside my head and looking up into 1,000-petaled lotus inside my head, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was a holy place. It was like one of the Iranian mosques, or I don't know, those mosques that have all the beautiful different colors and drawings and symbols. It was just absolutely gorgeous with this kind of blue hue. And that's, once again, a sign of Makara, as well as, I'm going to have to put you on pause. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of pausing today because lots of people out and about. Hold on. Okay, so let's hope the interruptions will stop. And I know you don't even notice it. I notice it. Anyway, so let's see, Makara Point, what did I notice? So yeah, so I had the experience of the diamond white light, the temple inside my head. What else did I notice? What changed the most after those experiences? I noticed that I had this spontaneous and constant desire to go inwards, to keep turning inwards. And I even noticed that in talking to people and in teaching some classes, I kept saying, I started now, you have to go inward, you have to go inward. And it was just this, it is so unlike me to naturally, and probably all of you, when you're on the journey, it's so, you hear it all the time, you have to go inwards, but you kind of don't. You forget, you don't quite know how to do it. But this just happened spontaneously, and all of my attention and everything just wanted to go inwards, be inwards. And it was just beautiful and stabilizing and peaceful. So those are some of the signs of Makara, as well as I started noticing and feeling, I even said to myself, something, I feel taller, like something has stood straight up like this. This is what I would feel around me, like some tall line. And that is another sign. It's one of the signs in the book says, you feel like something has stood up. And when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, confirmation, absolutely. So definitely I've reached Makara. Woo, big deal. What does that mean? I don't really know, but everything does change. So what does change? Let me make sure my notes here. Make sure I've given you, yeah, so you might see the diamond, brilliant diamond light. You can see it in a flash or kind of like fireworks. Feeling centered, wanting to go inwards. And then there's kind of like this total detachment of the outside world. You're just now, you're going inwards. And I have to say, let me move my notes over here. When I reached this point and realized where I was at, it just was, when I was turning inwards naturally and spontaneously, I was thinking to myself, now this is the true spiritual journey. I could feel something had shifted. And it's like every shift along my spiritual path, I go, oh, this is the real spiritual journey. Oh, this one's the real spiritual journey. But this one feels like the real spiritual journey. I don't know how to explain it, but it just, you're so much more in touch with your inner being and your inner connection and your inner knowing and your inner team, even though at times you feel totally disconnected. So it's quite an interesting process. So let me see. You may not have any of these flashy experiences, but you will notice a subtle shift. And I would say you would feel that something has stood up and that inner desire to go inwards, and that the outer world no longer has any draw on you at all. I mean, something just shifts and it's beautiful. Okay, another thing about once reaching Macra, which is upper process, what happens in the real burning away of your stuff happens. Let's see. What do I mean by that? It means that in upper process, when things come up and the Kundalini fire, the fire starts happening, that Kundalini has been burning away stuff all along. When the burning happens, that thing is gone forever. But at Makara, it's a total clearing out of stuff. So how do I explain this? So maybe a not so good analogy would be prior to Makara. Sorry if you hear my stomach growling. You're doing all your personal work and all that sort of stuff. And I can compare all that work to is you've got a hoarder house. You're going into your family, your uncle is a hoarder, and you're going to go in there and help. And you start cleaning out stuff, putting stuff on the lawn, you're making piles, and you've created a pathway. Maybe you put some things in boxes and you've gotten things out of the way. And you've put stuff out on the lawn for eventually to be picked up and dragged away. But prior to Makara, you've only cleared a path, and you may not see your stuff and it may feel like it's packed away and gone, but it's still there. It's still resting in your subtle body, and it can grab you at any time. So this is why things continually come up, right? Because we haven't really burned them away out of our subtle bodies, out of our karmic bodies. So when once you reach Makara and these things come up, then there's a real forever burning away of them. So in the hoarder analogy, the professionals show up and they start loading the stuff on the truck and they take it to the incinerator and it's gone. So that's the difference. So when things come up and that heat arises and it's burning away, you can literally feel in your field that you are lighter and more light is there. That's what I have noticed. And kind of proof of that for me was I had in one day, really bad karmic blowback from two neighbors. And it was one wasn't well justified. But anyway, it was karmic blowback for some images that I was holding on to and all that sort of stuff. And it was really kind of awful. And normally I would have had this reaction, self-hate, anger, whatever, a normal reaction when you have been attacked verbally by some very hateful people. I know there was no victim here at all. I totally deserved it. Not really, but it's karma. So I didn't mind. But anyway, I could feel my mind wanting to get angry, wanting to self-hate, to get on myself, but I couldn't reach it. I could almost feel the mind trying to reach for something and it wasn't there. And there was nothing going on inside of me. And to me, that was just such a shift from previous, say, lower Kundalini process, that I knew something had really shifted. And that's what I mean. When it's gone, it's gone. You can't reach for it. So let me see, what else? After Makara, let me see, what else do I want to say about Macra? Not much. So after Makara, Kundalini, there are two other points after that, Bindu and Parabindu. And I'm saying all this stuff hesitantly because I am still in the process. I'm still learning. So I'm just sharing what I know right now and what I've learned, and hopefully I've remembered correctly. After Makara, there's Bindu and Parabindu. And there are several different routes that Kundalini can take once she's at Macra. She could take like 5 different routes to make her way to Bindu and Parabindu. It appears, and I'm self-diagnosing, and I know you're never supposed to be doing that, but it appears that Kundalini for me is taking the route of Brahman Nadi, which is direct route, and it's very quick. Oftentimes several months after Makara, you quickly reach Bindu and travel to Parabindu, or even reach Parabindu very, very quickly after Makara. It's called the Brahmanati direct or something. So it happens very quickly. And it happens, and after you do that, then the shit really hits the fan. Then the restoration and renovation process begins, when all of your old samskaras and vasant, all the deep stuff that remains starts coming up. So it's a huge unloading process. Whereas before, with the other routes, you hit Macra, and then the unloading process happens, and then you reach Bindu and Parabindu. What it appears is happening with me is very fast to Bindu, Parabindu, and now stuff is coming up to be cleared. And this can be years of processing, but it's not like old processing where it hurts. It just comes up, you recognize it, and then for me so far, then there's a burning away of things. And I will tell you one of the things that did come up, and I think I shared in my other personal share, that there was a dark agreement with the dark entities, and probably some occult work in some past lives, where my heart was locked up, and I had an attachment and agreements with some dark entities or occult, and that I've had several experiences, interactions with them in the past. And when Macra, let's see, after Macra, another interaction happened, and I think it was in a dream. I can't remember. A lot of stuff has happened. So I've had a lot of death dreams, which is good because that's indications the ego is dying, and it was showing me some of my, attachments that I need to work on. So lots of kind of scary stuff happens after Macra, all these death dreams. But one interaction did happen where, oh, right, I remember now. I was in meditation, and dark beings came once again in meditation. They were like coming at me in my visual field, one after the other, and I could feel this fear. And I know this was a test. And I stood my ground and I said, no, I choose God. I choose the light. No, no, no. And immediately after that, I got so hot. And it just showed me that there was a burning away of that. And it was gone. But it's not forever gone, because here's what I'll tell you that happened recently. I recently was feeling very disconnected. Some unloading was happening, and I was starting to self-hate and, just get really in the dumps. And in meditation or in a dream, it's kind of funny the way this dream appeared. This happened. But I was in a house, it was in the garage, and in the driveway, a golf cart, I know this sounds hilarious, but a golf cart came driving up. The golf cart was empty, but what I felt and knew was this cart was being driven by a very demonic entity. I know how crazy this sounds. The cart was empty, but it was a warning. It came right up to the driveway, and it just sat there. And I once again had to say no, because it was my own self-hate and self-loathing that was going to draw the darkness in. I drew the potential of it. No beings were there, but there was a warning there. You can draw this back in even after it's been burned away. And so I had to say no to that. And it was I really experienced it, because I woke up in, one of those terror dreams. I was absolutely frozen in fear. And I was looking around my bedroom like, oh God, does anyone, anyway, cleared that. So you can always get these things back. So you have to, once they're gone, they are gone, but you can bring them back. All right, I might pause this so I can look at my notes and keep moving. The one thing I wanted to say about if you're questioning how sane I am about having these dark interactions, is that I thought I was crazy too, until I read in that book that I showed you in the recommendations video, the stories of spiritual transformation, the completing of Kundalini process. There were at least two different students that talked about their experiences of dark beings that came back to test them after Makara Point and throughout their journey, that they had connections in past lives with occults, and they didn't want that person, they had made agreements. So it absolutely happens. I'm not cuckoo. And it was very confirming for me to read that other people had the same experiences. So I think I'll stop my share at this point, and maybe that will be all I share for now. Oh, just to explain, Bindu, when Makara reaches Bindu, that's your self-realization, oneness realization. And then Parabindu is when the 4-inch gap above your head is filled in. And I intuitively feel certain that that happened to me. I had several energetic experiences or happenings in meditation where it just became absolutely clear that the 4-inch gap was being filled. And what that means is that the individual personal self is now connected with the universal self. And this is what I want. Yeah, I forgot I wanted to say this. All along this journey, I assumed that I was awake, whatever awake means. And I did have very many glimpses that really changed my identification and perspective on life, like the no self and Brahman awareness. But I always had this underlying sense that something wasn't complete, wasn't right, because it wasn't settling in. And what I recognize now is that you can have, or I recognize what was happening, you can have all of these glimpses and you do awaken, you do have the realization, you have self-realization, but they remain mental in the mental body until Kundalini process really kind of moves up to this point and allows the clearing away of the subtle body, and it starts landing in you as a real physical felt knowing. And that appears to be true for me. Something is landing in. It hasn't completely landed in. There's still the mental knowing and identification shift and, well, blasting away of whatever I thought I was. But the Kundalini process that is happening now is kind of making it really real here. Yeah. So what I recognized is, there's so many spiritual teachers out there, particularly talking about non-dual this, blah, blah, non-dual that. And I can immediately recognize that, oh, they were just like me. It's very mental. It's a mental realization. It doesn't take away from the realization, but it's not stable. It really takes Kundalini rising and upper process to start stabilizing things, because you've got to start, she will start burning away all the gunk in order for your body to handle and hold all of that realization. At least that's how it feels for me right now. I can be completely wrong, but it just, there's a difference in teachers. You can feel it now. Maybe you can't feel it, but it was like a switch turned on for me. I can tell, you can resonate with the teacher. Oh yeah, Kundalini is an upper process. You could feel it because there's a difference in their teaching styles and different things that they say. The ones who are in upper process are more about inward being. They don't negate any of the the stuff that comes up. They don't negate the darkness. They really, and there's a gentleness to them. There's a humbleness to them rather than a preaching kind of do this, do that. Look, and I don't want to point to any teachers as examples, but there's just a real softness once you reach Makara, and humility. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I'll share for this part one. Don't know what I'll share in the next, but all for now. Bye.